Okay, I have no rhythm. What is up, everybody? This is Jay, aka MultimediaJay. Glad everything works, including noise filters, right? I think so. No fancy, no fancy setup for any of the microphones or anything of that sort. Still doing a basic setup, even though I do have separate profiles in OBS for chat streams and game streams. So the templates have been created, and I'm going to back them up too, not make that same mistake that I made earlier. But yeah, it's all over. So yeah, we're going to get some more rain from Hurricane Henri, Henri actually. And then that's going to be that with that. So yeah, this is one of the things too. A lot of what I do with these chat streams is just talk about things. It's kind of like, it's like a new version of vlogging. If you remember old-fashioned video blogging on YouTube in the early days, that's basically where what these chat streams represent. They're picking up where vlogging left off, except with streams, it makes a little more sense to have a big, long video where you talk about stuff, as opposed to old-school vlogs where you might have an opener and a closer on the end. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, so been kind of kicking the tires on streaming since spring of 2020, of course. And part of the whole thing with streaming is trying to find out what works well with what. And one of the things that streaming works well with, and chat streams like this in particular, is current events, talking about how things have been going, things along those lines. Somebody a long time ago said I should do some kind of video series called Jay Vlogs His Life. And I've never been fond of the idea, because I was never really, I'm not the biggest vlogger in the world, never liked the idea of just coming on and making videos about, this is how my day was, hi YouTube, blah, blah, blah. You know, that never really sat well with me. So, I mean, chat streams for the most part, if we're vlogging through a chat stream, it's probably because of some stuff that's going on that really kind of got me worked up and, you know, talking about stuff. This hurricane was one of them. So Hurricane Henri is a thing of the past now, except for a little bit more rain, because the storm, now down to a tropical depression, is going to get blown out to sea, go out to sea with the low that it got sucked into. That's the reason why when before the storm, we were basically looking at a track that looked very much like Sandy. So crashing into New York, maybe hitting New Jersey or so. Not quite a big enough storm to hit New Jersey. I looked up the difference between hurricanes, tropical storms, and superstorm Sandy. Superstorms are names for physically massive storms. So a storm, for example, that could crash into New York while also causing problems in New Jersey at the same time, because it's just so darn big. So anyways, I was ready for week-long power outages. I was ready to not be doing anything for a while. I was ready to, you know, have cold water in the tub that I was, I think if the waterworks got knocked offline, I would have had this problem. But last time I had week-long power outages, I was washing up with a face cloth and essentially bucket washing in cold water in a tub. And if it wasn't summer, I would have been the most miserable guy in the world, because you know, the hazy, hot, and humid kind of sort of, you know, makes up for the fact that there's no hot water, but it's just yeah. So I was ready for another Irene. Henri was not another Irene. So when you see someone doing a chat stream like this, and this is something I got to say with regards to the sea lioning that's going on the internet, one of the newest forms of trolling just came out in it first got formally identified in 2014 with a satire cartoon where a sea lion was asking banal questions in bad faith. But there were people stopping by during the chat stream before the storm that were treating me like I was some kind of meteorologist. And I have to wonder, folks, in what world would a middle-aged fat guy who does technical stuff and multimedia stuff and is sitting next to a router that needs a new plug and a new DDWRT upgrade and a bunch of DVDs that I haven't gotten around to watching in the last several months, and some Blu-rays as well, what makes people think that some dude in his house with smart lights is in any way worth taking seriously as a meteorologist? I just don't understand that, but it's the internet. I mean, I know people don't have the skepticism towards the internet that they used to have back in the 90s, but has it really gotten that bad that I have to field questions about what do you think's going to happen to this part of Connecticut? What do you think's going to happen to New Jersey? Blah, 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 blah. There's plenty of news stations doing either live coverage of the storm or video updates about the storm, even on Facebook. Meteorologists on Facebook do Facebook live updates when they're not doing studio stuff for big storms and big weather events like this. There was absolutely no reason why people had to come in and try and take over the stream. And then there was the game stream last night where ESO player showed up and he was like, hey, yeah, you should have, or before the storm, I should say. There was an ESO last go round, I should say. He's like, hey, I'm trying to make a potion or whatnot. I should have just given him like a quick answer and got back to the stream. You know, that's one of the things you run into with streaming is that there's people out there that have no respect for you whatsoever. And they expect that you will stop everything that you're doing in order to cater to them with whatever it is that they're doing. But sea lioning is something I am not fond of. In a day and age where you can hit the books on something and learn about stuff, you should not be asking banal questions that you can look up yourself. It's not hard. So, I don't know. It really kind of casts doubt on just how viable streaming is versus making videos, because you get someone, you know, throwing your whole, derailing your whole stream, so to speak. That's the term I was looking for. You get someone derailing your stream, and you got to ask yourself, why am I doing this as opposed to making videos? Videos would be so much better, especially narrative videos. Those are very popular these days, and I'm thinking of making a few related to gaming stuff like Elder Scrolls Online and World of Warcraft. That can be the return of the gaming videos. Trying to figure out what to do with the Play Some Stuff name because it does have pull with social media engines, with search engines on social media. But I don't think just putting Play Some Stuff across the top of a game stream is really the best thing to do here. Either way, Hurricane Henri. We were looking at a sandy track last go-round where it would crash into New York and Connecticut would get all the wind. For the entire rest of the day after we streamed that, it kept going east and east and east until Connecticut was a direct hit. Then it kept going east and east and east again until Connecticut was 100% on the rain side of the storm. And then, instead of hitting Connecticut as a hurricane, it crashed very quickly down to a tropical storm. So basically another Sandy, but it was the other side of the storm that was in play. So a lot has changed in the last 10 years. A lot has changed in the last 10 years for me. Besides coming to the Geek House, not being so far out in the middle of the woods. And there was a couple of flickers of the power, but that was the extent of it. There wasn't even a proper outage where the lights went off for like 5 seconds. Just a couple of times when the UPSs clicked because there was a big sag on the line. But that was the extent of the power stuff. Not bad considering that there was news story after news story after news story. Trees down, trees down, trees down, flooding, flooding, flooding. Because we don't need any of this rain. The ground is already soppy enough as it is. And now we're going to get some more rain for the second part of Henri, which is the tropical depression thing as it goes out to sea. So there's more flash flood chances and other crap as the rain part goes out to sea with the low that it got sucked into. But by and large, though, it wasn't another Irene, and I consider that a good thing. Yeah, it wasn't another Irene, and I very much consider that a very, very good thing, although I'm not going to be too much like, Revenge of Connecticut for what happened with Irene. I'm not going to go too wild about that because Rhode Island got the wind. So, Eversource brought in all those extra crews. They called for help for all those extra crews, and the crews probably wound up getting diverted to Rhode Island because, yeah, wasn't that big of a deal. First hurricane, or whatever you want to call it, to crash into New England in 30 years, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Am I going to complain? No. I'm glad we actually caught a break for a change. Because around Irene season in 2011, we had Irene and then the October snowstorm, both of which resulted in week-long or several-day-long power outages. But I remember rehearsing for vlogs when the power came back on for Irene, where I would very furiously, I don't know if I ever made them. I'd have to go digging through the archives for 2011. But I remember rehearsing for discussing, while driving into work or something, after day like 3 or 4 with no power, and falling asleep to my neighbor's generator making a ton of noise, running all hours of the night. You know, during the whole Irene thing with the week-long power outages, I was rehearsing. I was like, why is it that our grid had these kinds of problems with a hurricane back in the 90s, but now we lose power for several days because of a tropical storm? And I was going to emphasize the living daylights out of tropical storm. Because I've traditionally associated tropical storms with being dollar store hurricanes, essentially. You know, hurricane, but not really. They don't have an eye. They often don't have the winds and things like that. And unless you get hit directly by the very center of the storm, it's often not much worse than a nor'easter that we can have. We've had nor'easters with faster winds than that. So regular storms and whatnot, regular rain and windstorms could produce similar conditions to most tropical storms if you're not smacked like we were with Irene. So, I mean, there was one tropical storm when I was little. Sitter was going to go out yard sailing for the day, going to all kinds of yard sales, and we were going out yard sailing in the tropical storm. A little bit of rain, a little bit of wind. It was nothing all that exciting. Like 30-mile-an-hour winds, maybe a gust to 30 or something. It wasn't like Irene. So when Irene was coming around, I was like, yeah, tropical storm, okay. Yeah, and then it knocks out the power for a week because we're on the windy side of the storm, and there's a lot of things that Eversource or Connecticut Light and Power back then was doing pretty poorly. So tree trimming was abysmal. So many times I would drive past tree after tree after tree on the way into work with branches all over the place, including power lines going right through the branches because there wasn't enough tree trimming. And I was like, there's going to be a storm one of these days that takes down some of these branches and it's going to knock out the power for several days. And Irene was that storm. Then, of course, you factor in the October snowstorm, and later in 2011, you factor in the October snowstorm. Now you have all of that crap, plus it's cold out and you need heat. Do you have a heat source for your house while the power's out for a week? So in my case, though, with the October snowstorm, it wasn't as bad, but it was pretty awful that suddenly CL&P couldn't handle anything properly. Eversource had a similar issue with Tropical Storm I say Isaiah. It's the Isaiah spelling of Isaiah, but that's often been translated in the Old Testaments I've read over the years into Isaiah. So they had another similar situation last year. That resulted in a Geek House power outage right here. My first real power outage at this place, the only real power outage at this place. I think it's because of a downed tree very, very close to the house or something that was screwing everything up. But since essential services and what, I was like, oh, great, here we go, Irene all over again. Of course, I did notice that I still had water and I still had gas when the power was out. So the other utilities were still online. So I was like, oh, this is almost like cheating that, you can still take a shower in cold water while the power is out, because the only thing that's out is the water heater, unless the waterworks goes down. So, yeah, drinks at the ready. These are extra cold, too, so I was cranking the fridge, of course, in case the power went out. Good stuff. But, yeah, the whole situation with Irene, the October snowstorm was a mess. Then Sandy came around. Other people had it worse than me, so, yeah, it was a mess. There's been a lot of reforms with Eversource, though, including some of the more recent gubernatorial administrations here in Connecticut passing regulations and legislation that they have to reimburse us if we have food go bad because of a long power outage and stuff. And there can be other actions taken against them if they take too long to recover from a storm. I mean, we already pay higher utility rates than a lot of the rest of the country, so you might as well get our money's worth on that matter. Now, here's the thing, though. I was watching, and I posted this on Twitter, by the way, the Facebook Live of the Eversource thing about, the storm wasn't as bad as we thought it was. We're going to send a lot of these crews we called into Rhode Island. Yeah, so I was looking at that. And they're actually talking about how they've improved the grid technology for switching circuits and identifying where the outages are and, redirecting things better than it was 10 years ago. And so I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool that they did that. So now there's a lot of tree cleanups going on right now. There's trees down all over the place. So there's all kinds of trees down. I guess the one thing that we won't be able to fix anytime soon is the flood water. Anybody who's dealing with the flood side of all of this, yeah, floodwaters aren't going to be receding until the whole thing's out to sea in another day or two. So, but as far as, trees getting blown down and stuff, their crews are already going wild with that stuff as it is. Heard them talk about getting the whole state back online by tomorrow evening. Technically tonight, since it's the wee hours of the morning on Monday. Happy Monday. Hey, by the way, for those of you who wonder why I'm doing a chat stream instead of more ESO, ESO is down for maintenance. The new patch is rolling out on PC and Stadia, PC, Mac, and Stadia, the computery platforms first. I'm looking forward to it because there's supposed to be better multi-thread support for multi-core processors and the like than the previous version of the game. So I'm curious if that might fix some of the remaining performance bottlenecks I run into. Because I've often run ESO with the system thingy going, and CPU's never maxed out, GPU's never maxed out, but I get frame dips in busier areas like, say, Daggerfall or Rimmen in Northern Elsewhere and whatnot. The test realms are still up if I want to play around on the test realm, but unfortunately the test realm only took my EU characters, which is one Khajiit that I have as a placeholder. Haven't really done anything to develop characters on the EU mega server yet. So I'll have to figure that out. Why on earth, with a full set of characters on the North American mega server, is it pulling from EU? Makes no sense. All right. So, yeah. It's amazing when you think about the technology involved in the last 10 years. So what's happened since 2011 with the whole Irene situation? Because I was reading the emails my dad and I sent after we both got the power back on after a week. And the emails we sent, the pictures we took, the storm pictures that we went around taking after Irene. And what I find interesting is just how smartphone technology, for example, has really done a lot for us. I mean, I understand computers. There's a group of people out there that will always be like, rah, computers, and will never really accept mobile for what it is. But smartphone technology and all of the accessories that smartphones have spawned really would have taken, if I had a week-long power outage, it would have completely taken the teeth off of all of that. So first off, you can if the cell towers don't get blown down, you can just hop on a data plan on your phone and mess around on the internet on your smartphone, then just have a bunch of charge boxes. So have a bunch of 5-volt charge boxes for charging your phone with. And if you don't run something off your car when you're driving to work or something to recharge your charge boxes, or, if you work in a place that still has power and they don't let you plug your stuff in somewhere, you can always, well, actually, that's something I should do. If there's ever the threat of a storm where the power really will go out for a week, buy a really high capacity charger like what the live streamer, like what the IRL streamers use, and hook that up. But here's the thing. With Hurricane Irene, or with Tropical Storm Irene, I was doing everything with NIM batteries, rechargeable AA batteries. So I had a Maglite flashlight, little pencil light. You might have seen it in some of my tech videos, mostly in the 2010s. But I have a little silver Maglite, which I unscrewed the top and basically put the rest of it inside the top by flipping it upside down, turned into like an LED candle. And that worked really well for illumination, along with a crank lantern and other stuff that I had during Irene. But to charge all of that, if I wanted to put new batteries in that, because of whatever, if I want to put new batteries in that, I needed to have my car jump starter with a lead acid battery go to a power inverter, which then went to the Duracell 15-minute recharger that I have for NIM batteries. Still got it over there. It still charges my rechargeables, but most of what I use the rechargeables for is stuff that takes regular batteries anyways. But so you need to go through all of that just to recharge something that you're going to use for light. And now, circa 2018, this thing. Now, circa 2018, whoa. You have this 5-volt light wand, which I got from Walmart. I use this in my tech videos because it makes for a great recording light for stuff. But this little LED, just turn it off. This little LED, yeah, a bunch of LEDs. You just go like that, or like this, and make the camera go completely nuts when you're doing this, and then this, and then this. Gotta flip that off a little. Gotta flip that on and off a little better. All right. It's still, the switch is stuck. How's that for it's interesting how there's like reflections of the LEDs. There's green ones and red ones I'm seeing from all of this. But anyways, yeah, enough playing with this thing. This little light wand, circa 2018, charges off of micro USB. So whatever you charge your phone with charges this thing as well. I've never actually killed the battery in this thing before. I always keep topping it off. I've never actually seen how long it ran. But if I would have walked around with it probably in low mode, like this, I probably would have walked around with it in low mode, could put it down and read to it or something like that, you know, or put it in candle mode or do something like this with it. But if I had the week-long power outage, this thing would have probably been the MVP, much like the flashlight with the rechargeable NIM batteries was during Irene. But you have all of these devices, and also some of the, as we saw earlier with the experiment with the ring lights will run off of charger boxes as well. So wherever I could charge my charger boxes, maybe daisy chain them all together or something, wherever I could find a place to charge those or have them charge in my car or something like that, you know, drive around, leave the engine running to finish topping them back off again by having a 12-volt socket to 2 ports or something like that, as long as they don't kill the battery in the car, you know. This thing would have definitely come in handy if we had the week-long power outage, and it would have been a lot more versatile. So if it started going dead, if it went dead on me, I could just probably plug in a charge box to the micro USB, and then this thing would have charged back up and hopefully charged back up and ran at the same time. So, yeah, smartphones and smartphone accessories have totally changed how this all works. And how about, you know, being really bored and playing video games on Nintendo Game Boy Advance or something, which also needed its own charger, by the way. So car jumper plus power inverter was what you needed to charge that thing up. So what about, say, smartphones? Cheap smartphone, get a bunch of charge boxes and whatnot. It has data plans and things like that. Whereas I remember during Irene staring at my blank turned off TV, and I was like, I got all this stuff and I can't do anything with it, and I haven't been able to do anything with it for days. I'm playing Final Fantasy on Game Boy Advance because that's the only way I have any entertainment whatsoever. In today's world, smartphone, data plan, if the cell towers didn't get blown down, smartphone, data plan, charge boxes, boom. Mess around on Facebook, mess around on Twitter, watch stuff on YouTube. The internet can still be available even during a blackout. So all of this technology in the span of 10 years made the worst case scenario with Henri a lot better than the worst case scenario we had with Irene. So I think the biggest problem I would have had is how stuffy this place gets when you can't run fans or anything and there's no air conditioning. It's supposed to hit 90 later in the week. So hopefully, yeah, the heat's supposed to pick back up after Monday night. So hopefully the utility companies can bring everyone back online, like they say, prior to everything getting hot again. So everybody has their air conditioning. And the thing is, too, the electric company can still bring in the profits, and they don't have to resort to stuff that gives them bad PR, like estimating electricity usage, because their meter collector couldn't get your actual number for the month because of the super long power outage and stuff like that. So I'm handily impressed, though, with what the Lamont administration and the Malloy administration did in terms of passing some rules of the road for Eversource. So Eversource now, with a tougher rule book and stuff, and being subject to penalties and other things if they blow it, went out and basically threw everything they had at bringing the state back online. If it was another Irene, they would have gone gung-ho to get everybody switched back on as soon as possible. Because you're also talking about making money getting disrupted by mass power outages from residential customers. So, I mean, what do you do when nobody's actually using kilowatts? Because most of your customer base is blacked out for a couple of days, if not a week or more. So definitely a big thumbs up for the way the utility companies handled it. They over-prepared, so they would have been absolutely prepared if it was a worst-case scenario. So, but with Rhode Island getting all the crap, they just send the surplus and send all the labor over across the border to rewire Rhode Island, whatever the heck they need. It's stuff like that. But in today's world, though, it's pretty cool how just a couple dumb changes to technology have made all the difference in a situation like this. A blackout situation wouldn't sting as much with, I can light things with this thing, I can set it down. Actually, the big issue I had with the mag light that I used for Irene was the LED was exposed. So if it fell over and it hit something, I could basically total the light, because the little LED, let's turn this off. The one little high LED thing in the middle, like just one of these would be exposed and things like that, versus this thing was designed to essentially be used as a work light. You do all kinds of stuff with it. You can point it up, you can point it like this, you turn it into a desk lamp, and you can do this and be an idiot, and so you can do this to be an idiot. I'm like, hey, I forgot to turn it off. And it's chargeable, has a rechargeable internal battery, and I've never actually run this thing out before. And if it did go dead, you just plug in a phone charger and charge it that way. So, I mean, the 5-volt world that we live in nowadays is quite a marvel. That's just the lighting side of it. On the other side of it, with not being super bored at home, smartphones, being able to look at stuff on a data plan, stuff like that, you know, it's a totally different world than it was 10 years ago. And I'm just appalled thinking of the technology involved in all of this. Yeah, it's just amazing how things have progressed in the last 10 years. Smartphones used to be something where you'd pretty much get ripped off if you had one. Now you have stuff like AT&T prepaid, where you can flip it on and off like most subscription services these days. So I turned on the plan that costs $30 a month with the data plan, but I will, when that's about to expire, I'll just switch back to the $2 daily plan, which only prepays $25 every 3 months. So it's something I use for the occasional phone call that I have to make. It's stuff like that. So flexible phone plans, not being stuck with like $40 a month for landline service I almost never use. It's just an amazingly better world here in the 2020s than it was in the 2010s and the 2000s. And really, big thumbs up to all the advances. One of the projects I'm thinking of doing with the computers as we move forward from all of this involves nostalgia. But as much as I can be nostalgic for the 2000s and the heydays of the silver bullet, I would much rather have the 2020s than the 2000s in terms of technology. Things are just so much better than they were back then. But I'm not going to spoil anything further. So what's next? ESO is going to come back up. We'll see how good the multi-thread performance goes. I might just check it off on my own on the test realm with that Khajiit character. But the problem with leveling that Khajiit character is that that's a character copy from when the PTS copied characters off the live servers, so the progress won't be saved. It would be better to level that character on the live servers once the game came back up. So, yeah, we got that. But here's the problem. The 9-to-5ers didn't do anything tonight because of the storm. So, probably going to be non-stop overtime until the volume crashes as we try to catch up with everything. This week was already going to be busy, and it started with a hurricane that wasn't. So, well, at least for Connecticut, it wasn't. There's probably some flood problems in New York. Rhode Island got clobbered, and probably parts of Massachusetts got clobbered by the wind that we didn't get because the storm was too far over to the east most of the time. Or some kind of flooding or something like that. I think there will be a negative effect on the volume with the warehouse folks. So I think it's going to be overtime for the foreseeable future. So here's what's going to happen. I have some short videos that I've been meaning to make. I have some video projects that I've been thinking of for a while. Probably work on those when I can. Check out ESO, see how that's going. Get back to streaming later in the week or on the weekend, whenever we catch up from all of this. But yeah. Hurricane Henri. I still don't know why there wasn't a Hurricane Henri, the English way of saying that name. I guess Henri is French or something. It's Henry with an I, so But yeah, Hurricane Henri. Anglicized the heck out of it, but hey, the joke's old. And all that's left is a tropical depression that's just going to give us a little bit more rain. But there it is. That's our first hurricane in 30 years. I'll take it. I'm not going to complain that we lucked out on this thing, because I've already experienced the alternative. And believe me, the alternative isn't good. All right. What to do next? While we're catching up from this with a crap ton of overtime, there's some video projects I can be working on, and we'll pick up the streaming later. Until next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.